Grade 12, work, energy, and power. Okay, so we are given a 5 kg block which is released from rest from a height of 5 meters and slides down a frictionless incline. So there's no friction. So we'll say Fk, not there. And then it moves along a frictionless horizontal portion PQ. So even here, Fk is not present. And finally moves up a second rough incline. So here friction is present and then it comes to stop. Okay, so the frictional force, which is a non-conservative force between the surface and the block, is 18 newtons. Using 5.1, using energy principles only, calculate the speed at point P. Okay, so since we are dealing with work, energy, and power, we can say change in potential energy plus change in kinetic energy is equals to one work done by a non-conservative force. But now, there's no non-conservative force between this initial spot to P. So our work done by a non-conservative force is 0. And then our change in potential energy would be given by mg h final minus h initial. And then our kinetic energy would be half m v final squared minus v initial squared. Okay, and then our mass is 5 multiplied by gravity, which is 9.8. And then h final is 0, while h initial was 5 meters plus half the mass, which is 5. And then our v final, we don't know. And then our v initial would be 0 since it's starting from rest, equals to 0. Okay, and then you would just multiply this, and then you'd say 1 over 2 and transpose it after. And then you'd say 1 over 2 times 5 v final squared is equals to, so due to this 5 here, it would be negative. So if you transpose it this side, it's going to be positive. So this means you're going to have 5 times 9.8 times 5. And then you just divide both sides by 5 and multiply by 2. So you're going to say multiply by 2 and divide by 5, multiply by 2 and divide by 5. So you're going to have v final squared is equals to this 5 and this 5 are going to cancel out. So you're going to be left with 9.8 times 5 times 2, which then you will square root to get v final as 9.9 meters per second. Okay, and then explain why the kinetic energy at point P is the same as that at point Q. Okay, we're going to do 5.2 here. So they said there is no friction. So no friction, or you could write zero friction, results in no loss in energy. Okay, so if there's no friction, then our energy is conserved. 1.5.3, explain the term non-conservative force. Okay, so a non-conservative force is a force for which work done is dependent on the path taken. Okay, so this is the definition of a non-conservative force. Okay, and then 5.4, calculate the angle of the slope. Okay, so to calculate the angle, we should know from math that we're going to need to use trig ratios. So it's either we need to get this distance or the distance QR. And I think getting QR would be much more easier. So we would apply the first formula we applied, whereby change in potential energy plus change in kinetic energy is equals to the work done by a non-conservative force. Now, work done by a non-conservative force won't be zero since friction is coming into play. So we will have our work energy theorem, which says force multiplied by displacement multiplied by cos of theta. And this theta is not the same as the theta here. So let's say this is theta prime. Okay, and then we have our change in potential energy. So mg h final minus h initial plus half m v final squared minus v initial squared. Okay, so we're going to say 5 times 9.8 times h final, which is 3, minus h initial, which is 0, plus 1 over 2 multiplied by 5. And then our v final is 0, since it's going to come to stop, minus our initial, which is 9.9, is equal to the force, which is 18 newtons, multiplied by the displacement we don't have. And then our cos of theta is going to be, cos of the theta is going to be 180, since our friction is acting in the opposite direction. So a force going in that way would be theta is equal to 0. And then a force acting against that would be theta is equal to 180. Okay, so this is going to yield negative 18 delta x, and then we're just going to say 5 times 9.8 times 3 plus 1 over 2 multiplied by 5 times negative, sorry, I forgot the square here, 9.9 squared. Okay, and then what you do, you divide by negative 18 both sides. Okay, so we're going to divide both sides by negative 18, divide this side by negative 18, and if you punch that into your calculator, you should get that delta x is 5.4458 meters. Okay, and now remember, you cannot round this answer off since it's not a final answer. Okay, now we have something like this for our triangle. We are given the 3 meters here, we are given theta. Now we have just found the 5.4458 meters. So now we can say opposite over our hypotenuse. So sine of theta prime would be equal to opposite, which is 3, over our hypotenuse, which is 5.4458. And then we could take the arc of sine, which is just sine, arc sine 3 over 5.4458, which is just equals to 33.43.